Back with another draft profile video, and today we are here to talk about R. Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma. So let's get right into it. One of the more dynamic and explosive edge rushers in this year's draft class. That's production is a little bit more modest, mainly due to the lack of snap production over the past couple of seasons. 372 defensive snaps this past year, 19 hurries, 6 sacks, and the year before, just over 500 defensive snaps. He did still post a 20% pass rush win rate, a 6.2% run stop rate, according to Pro Football Focus. But it's over the past 2 years that he's became the full-time starter for Oklahoma, and that included missing some games this past season specifically. Now, with that said, this is also a slightly undersized edge rusher, 6'1.5", 249 pounds. He's a stocky player, but he's not the longest, not the tallest edge rusher, and that is noticeable on film. It can get him into trouble a bit at times. As I mentioned at the beginning, one of the more dynamic and explosive edge rushers in this year's class. Gets me right into his run defense. I think this player has great explosion off the ball, and I think it translates really well as a run defender specifically. He's got great quickness off the ball in the lower body. He's got a lot of juice to get your tackle off balance immediately. He collects his footwork quickly, gets balanced very quickly, plays with good upper body entry points as the run defender specifically. I think his play strength surprised me the most. I ended up with it at the good category. I didn't expect that early when watching, and a lot of that's going to come back to what I think is phenomenal combat balance. I do think he lacks some true knockback force from the lower body as a run defender. I think what he does well is he creates a lot of momentum upfield. He's a downhill attacking styled edge rusher that wants to get downhill, collect you off balance, and push you back. And he does a really nice job of running his feet through entry points. He runs his leg to work to hold an edge. Quickly gets his hands ready when he's working flat down the line of scrimmage. And I also think this another strong area of his game is the discipline. He's got real patience about him when he's working into the backfield. Sometimes you feel like he's leaving maybe plays on the table because of that. But specifically the way that he takes on blocks, but he doesn't run himself past the pocket, the way that he squeezes two blocks or closes airspace on the backside of a zone block. Those little things I think is incredibly disciplined. It's those details that can make it really tough for an offensive player to find openings and find space. I think that's going to translate really well for him immediately to the NFL. Now, for me, his hands aren't overly heavy at the point of attack, which I do think shows up a bit as a run defender. Mentioned it feels like he can get swallowed a bit at times when taking on blocks, lacking some of the true lower body jolts through entry to just kind of settle down and create a super firm anchor at the point of attack, which also leads to him struggling a little bit to hold kind of that lockout at the point of attack. And I think some of that too is, again, not having elite length either. But what I do like is I do feel like there's above average upper body strength for him, and he does do a nice job of really snapping his hips into contact. Because how quickly he gets himself settled down, he can take on pulling offensive linemen in a hurry or settle himself down very quickly outside of offensive tackles who are looking to create that hinge, and he can set the edge pretty well initially because of that. It's just as the rep goes along, I feel like he gets into some tough spots. The missed timing to me occasionally to jolt blocks and create leverage into his entry points can also be an issue, because when he misses times and he doesn't get that initial pop, that's when you'll see him kind of roll back and he gets pushed back. We saw that against Texas this past season. He plays with good leverage when he's setting the edge upfield. He attacks an offensive lineman's chest initially, gets hands on very quickly. He gets upfield with body control. He used that inside arm to consistently kind of keep offensive linemen shielded off. That way he can continue to work and continue to find shed opportunities on the second and third effort. And against tight ends, that's where you see a lot more of the pop. You see the jolt there. You see him knock guys back. And again, he's just a downhill player. He wants to get an edge. He wants to get upfield. I do think he has real hit power, explosiveness to his game specifically. And he also does play with a pretty early wide base that gets balanced, feet get settled. It just doesn't maintain to me as the play rolls along. I don't love his positioning for double teams, even just the ability to naturally sit in and handle double teams. Typically, I don't think he positions himself that well to actually do it, but I also just don't think maybe that's his style that's actually going to translate that well to the next level anyway. But I think he's a smart player against the run. Patience, there's a detail, there's a discipline to it. He gets ahead of pulling offensive linemen in a hurry. Instead, he needs to find a way to have a base that can settle down as the rep goes along, which is why I think he's much more of just a downhill piece as of now. Now, the other issue that I have is inconsistencies finishing plays. And this can show up a bit as a pass rusher, but it's not really an effort issue. It's more so just the fact that he's not super long in the backfield, and you really feel that. There is some initial agility, right? There's some lateral quickness that he can tap into, but he doesn't cover a lot of range, it feels like, in the backfield. He also tends to get on the ground way too often. His footing seems to leave him when he gets in those spots where he's trying to mirror ball carriers and he's not just attacking upfield. And to me, he slows himself a bit at the tackle point. His tackling to me is slightly below average right now. It's just not consistent when he's in a spot to make a play, and I think some of the length plays into that as well. But he does have pretty good discipline when he's behind the line of scrimmage. Now, as a pass rusher, he's very good as a pass rusher, but like most guys coming out of the draft, there's a lot that needs to be cleaned up there. It's a lot of projection-based. I mean, you watch him against Ole Miss, you're not super impressed. You watch him against South Carolina, he's pinning his ears back. He looks incredible in a game like that. But it starts with that get-off. It starts with the sudden lateral sidestep quickness, the juice off the ball, the great timing off the line of scrimmage as well. And I think where he ties ties it well, which surprised me, is he covers pretty darn good depth off the line in his first few steps. There's really no false movement to his get off. And on top of that, he also comes off the ball with really nice pad level. And he makes it tough for tackles to get good entry points. I think he's a little bit slippery in the upper body. This also shows up when he's looping as a rusher or when he's just slanting upfield or when he gets interior matchups. He is difficult to get hands on cleanly. And he has that ability to kind of dip and kind of just settle under pads, which makes him a lot to deal with. And you'll get some just immediate wins just by his get off. And we saw it against South Carolina. That quickness off the line immediately can get offensive tackles off balance and create an initial knockback for him specifically. He could beat up slide protection because of that as well. And he also does a nice job with his pad level into speed to power entry. He's very leveraged in those spots. I think it stalls on him, but he is very leveraged initially, which again, if he gets you off balance, that can be enough to just collapse the pocket. And for him, I think what he does best is he runs the pocket that way, and he just kind of continues to force the quarterback to step up. He can do that because he gets under your pads, and he has fantastic contact balance, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. Very good quickness when working on that outside move. I think his shake at the top of the rush is a little bit more average to me. I expected more there. I do think what he does well is he has great play speed as a rusher. Again, there's not a lot of false movement. He's incredibly decisive when he makes up his mind of where he's going to go, so there's no second guessing when you watch him. But I don't think he covers a ton of lateral depth. It's more straightforward. Here's the skip move. Here's the crossover. I'm going to get to it. And he'll cover some depth upfield, but it's very straightforward, I think, in that approach and how he's actually going about setting it up. But the slipperiness is probably going to be the most underrated element to his game that could translate, because you get him on the inside or you get him looping or you get him slanting, all of a sudden he's really tough to get hands-on cleanly, and he just finds a way to get an edge. And when he's that powerful working upfield, he's tough to halt, and he's tough to kind of shut down on reps. And what I think he does well is he uses his hands here well to typically kind of wall off offensive linemen to keep himself clean enough so that he can keep working upfield and he doesn't get lashed and get stalled out. True change of space, kind of being naturally fluid as a rusher, I think is a little bit less sudden. Specifically, I don't think you feel that as often, but I think he has above average agility. It's just not fantastic to me. I think it's above average when he's working games, but he does lose a touch of speed. To add to that with this hand usage, the way that he deploys his moves as a rusher, I think there's a lot of good here. In and out move is very effective. It's kind of his go-to. Press to tackle, work the edge. We saw that against Texas. He really doesn't lose much speed at all when he's turning the corner as a pass rusher, and his long strides just continue to gain depth, which is fantastic. He doesn't really slow down as tackles are trying to find an entry point working around the edge. He's got a very dynamic second effort chop move, and you'll see this with his swim move as well. And because he's constantly active with his hands, he finds a way to kind of lock out, work an arm over, get back into the play. He redirects well when he works to the top of the rush as a pass rusher as well, so it gets him back into the play. And he's got really good explosiveness. When he's working that two-handed swipe, he jolts it with his entry, he tries to snap his hip through it, continues to kind of work that long arm to find an edge. He transitions speed to power, as mentioned, pretty low. I just don't think he gets a ton of jolt from the lower body. I think we saw that against Ole Miss. I don't think his lockout is as consistent when he's trying to long arm. I think that gets him into some problems. That time we've seen him kind of just completely get stalled out because he can't create the separation that he needs to. And I also think he doesn't consistently attack offensive tackles aggressively enough upfield, which allows him to shut down some of those outside rushing opportunities. And it's so decisive with where he is going that it kind of stalls out some of those reps before they really feel like they actually got started. He does find fairly accurate, pretty consistent break points when he's working that crossover club move. He's got a fluid crossover move. It's just that his length is closer to average to me, and it does stall out when he's working walk back consistently through a rep. Contact balance on the edge, works through punches really well. His punch to rip move doesn't create a ton of space, so I think is, again, another knock. We saw that against South Carolina, but I do like his timing with his hand usage, specifically as a pass rusher. They're very fast hands, very instant hands, and again, there's some real explosiveness to when he throws them as well. There's lateral jolting quickness out in space, so he can run a bit, and there's some awareness to kind of settle himself down when he gets out into space. Ankle flexion is pretty strong. He could drop his weight, sink. He's got very good bend. He just fails to me to consistently unlock his hips and create outstanding speed to power, but I think some of that is maybe just a touch limited as well. And here's where his footing gets challenged a bit. He does end up on the ground a little bit too often, and a lot of times it's a very aggressive outside bending approach, which also puts him on the ground. For me, overall here, R. Mason Thomas doesn't have a ton of experience in terms of just snap counts alone. But that said, it's a lot of the upside projection. Very good pass rusher, great explosiveness, and good play strength. He knocks those out of the park. It's probably going to give him first-round consideration. Being a little bit undersized does hurt. I wish his body control was better. I think he's on the ground too much, and he's not overly fluid. His agility, I think, is closer to a good spot, but I just don't think his body control is there. I think it's slightly below average. Same thing as a tackler. I think those things go hand in hand. Speaking of that, I think his hand usage is in a good spot. He sheds pretty well. It's just that against the run, it's not the same as it is as a pass rusher, and a lot of that also is his ability just to be slippery to me. But he's disciplined, seems like a pretty smart player on the field. I have him at a 6.11 grade. Final verdict for me with R. Mason Thomas is that this is more of a weak side defensive end edge rusher, stand-up edge rusher. I think he's capable of dropping into some underneath coverage responsibilities. I think he'd be adequate there. He has enough movement skills to do so and enough speed and space to do so and an awareness to do it. You could occasionally ask him to get a little bit more depth, but he's probably not going to be a big impact piece in the pass game when he's in coverage. But you want him working the backside. You want him chasing down plays rather than having to settle in at the point of attack. A blitzing style, a slanting style, an aggressive upfield front that allows him to get some matchups on the interior, that allows him to slant from the outside to the inside and just play upfield, play downhill, attack blocks one-on-one rather than sit and wait on blocks and deal with combos consistently. Definitely an upside type of pick here, but in the right fit could be very valuable immediately. To me, that feels like more of a second-round type of grade than a first-round grade. But again, if you're banking on some of this, the true factors that you can build off of, he is going to be a player that gets considerations just because of that alone. And as we kind of try to polish up the rest, and then you also ask yourself, how truly high is the ceiling for this player, which could also be another question that you ask yourselves. But immediately, he's going to make an impact because he can roll. With that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you, Pride, for watching, and I'm out.